wants to be king!
Today we're going to talk about something that was brought up by a young viewer of the channel that calls himself Modern Spartan. He asked if I could elaborate on what I've said on several occasions, in that men and boys need to stop deifying, stop worshiping people that are celebrities, influencers, athletes, people that are deemed to be popular in this culture. We have reached a point in our society that masculinity has been whittled down to next to nothing, and what is considered masculine today is vaginal. It's feminine. They celebrate weak men that capitulate to the strong, fierce woman, and they berate anybody who shows the semblance of true masculinity. This has pervaded our culture for decades, and this whittling away of what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine, has left boys in a vacuum. They have lost their way. They have lost their purpose. They don't know where they're supposed to go, who they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. They don't know their place, because the feminist movement has changed the landscape in such that what men used to bring to the table, what quantified as being a good man, is now looked down upon. It is actually shunned in Western culture for this thought culture and the playboy culture. These two things go hand in hand, and yet the people who make up these spaces don't realize that often the very ideology that's being preached by these gurus and self-acclaimed alpha male leaders of men, this behavior is exactly what got women to where they are today. This is how the whole third, fourth, whatever wave we're upon, this is how it got to be this point. Because people with misogynistic views like Andrew Tate and all the other red pill dorks who talk about how marriage is horrible and women should be subjugated, by men of status. These are delusional concepts, but because they're so attractive to young boys, and these young boys don't have a buffer in their homes, they don't have fathers with a backbone, and they have no place in the society to look and go, that's what a strong man is. They're left to the internet, and the internet has provided an onslaught of just different kind of dorks LARPing and trying to sell to these children what manhood is supposed to be. When I got this question from Modern Spartan, it was in reference to a video that I made about 2 months ago, and I chewed on it because I didn't know exactly how I was going to approach this. And then, as happens a lot of time, the clowns in the manosphere provided every example needed and all the foundation needed to make this video and address this topic. There are different factions in this space, but they're all basically along the same loser mentality that Homo Tomassi and his band of losers espouses. Marriage is bad. It's a bad contract for men. It's better to spin plates, have multiple women on a roster, and cut your dick off and do all of this goofy weirdo shit. And then you've got the other branches of the Rolo Homo tree, MLD, telling women that they're supposed to endure abuse. You've got Tate telling dudes that it's all about the money and calling them peasants, and it's just it's a grift. It's these people are taking advantage and taking the place of the girls and the women who brought these boys and men to the space in the first place. There's an old saying my grandmother used to hit us with whenever we were sitting around doing nothing, and she would tell us that idle hands was the devil's playground. And we always thought that was just her way of getting us to do the chores around the house and the slave work she wanted us to do. But as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that she was very, very she's very on point with that assessment, because if and when a young man doesn't have a rudder on his ship, if and when he doesn't have a work that he is like charging toward, then all kinds of vices and lures and detours from his true purpose in life, those become attractive. Video games, porn, the red pill ideology, all of the loser stops that you can make in the elevator of life, that's where the devil starts to play with one's life. With the age of the internet, the void has been filled. And with that void, you've got all of these grifters and snake oil salesmen that are appealing to the injury that's in a lot of young men and boys' hearts from relationships or failed endeavors or whatever it is. And they're capitalizing on this, because instead of running to a real man in the world, running to their father, their uncle, these men have become neutered, or they're absolutely absent in their lives. So they don't have anyone. They turn to the internet. And when they hit the internet, you get this bullshit ideology that comes from dudes like Andrew Tate, who lords himself as the savior for men. But all you have to do is just ask yourself, how did this guy get where he's at? What did he do to acquire this wealth? And once you start to understand how that came about, grifting lonely, broken men out of their money by feeding sob stories to online hookers, that's fleecing men out of their money. That's using their knowledge of manipulation and the general heart of men to take these men's money. They built an empire on this, and now their empire is being built even higher to the sky by grifting young men, pretending to be their savior, when in truth, these things that are taught in this hustler university and all of this stuff, number one, have little to nothing to do with Andrew Tate. And you could get all of this information for free on YouTube if you had a purpose, if you knew what you were trying to do. All of this information is free. But one of the most telling things happened just this morning, and that's what sparked this video. One of the little tater tots, which has been the most annoying in my feed, his name is Brazo. Not really sure how you say his name, but he has been one of the most loyal nut riders of Tate and his organization. Every video that I've seen that's made my stomach turn, of this guy walking around his place with his shirt off with this homoerotic sales pitch to these young boys, this video comes from this Brasso dude. And for whatever reason, he was kicked out of the real world because they don't need him, he needs them, and all this God talk. I couple that with all of the narcissistic, malignant shit that Andrew Tate says, and it almost negates the things that he says that are positive about men biting down on their mouthpiece in life, making something of themselves, realizing that no one's going to save them. All these basic things that Jocko Willink says, that David Goggins says, that all the real men on the space of the internet, all men who influence men to dig within themselves, they all say the same thing. But it's the narcissistic, hedonistic lifestyle that these men use to lure young boys who have just figured out what their nuts are for. And this self-proclaimed most influential man on the planet is creating a cult. This is definitely a cult, because if and when you can't question the leader, if and when you can't question the process, you can't question anything. If and when you questioning or saying anything against the leaders, the captains, if that gets you booted, you're in a cult. If you can't think for yourself, and this comes with ramifications of extrication from the group, you are in a fucking cult. And that's exactly what this is. It's a cult of douchebag personality. Because everything that this guy is about his money and how he's better than you, and walking around with booty shorts on, smoking cigars, when the majority of his audience are little boys. You have to question what it is about your guru, your leader, your idol that you're so fascinated with. He's tapped into the juvenile arrested development mindset that all boys go through when they're young and trying to find their place in life. And this grift, this G status is only relevant as long as your payment clears, or as long as you abide by the God's guidelines within the community. I've seen several people that are conflicted because they've invested hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars in this space. And even though they've been kicked out without any valid reason that they understand, they still have this fealty because they feel like they were a part of something. And that makes it worth something. This is what you young guys need to understand what that is. When you don't have a space as a young man, when you don't have a place where you're amongst men that are charging for something, you become desperate. This is why young boys in the inner city go to gangs. When there's no male guidance, when there's no male leadership, when there's no strong masculine presence, young boys instinctively go seek that out. And if and when somebody can present that with bravado and confidence, young boys bite that hook. This whole idea of you're a little G, this is gang mentality. This is grooming mentality. This is the same mentality that got me and my brother and all the youngsters caught up in the shit that we got into when we were youngsters, because the OG told us, hey, little homie, come check this out, and made us feel a part of something, made us feel special, made us feel like we were somebody because we were willing to do something that he needed done, but he couldn't get done. And so we crashed out while this dude, he profited on it. It's the same mindset. It's the same grift. The moment you are no longer of benefit to that person, to that organization, they spit you out. You're forgotten. It's the same way as the streets. They've just framed it to match today's technology, to match today's needs. There's only been one man who walked this planet that was worth men looking to, idolizing, and following, and that was Jesus Christ. The only other man who has come close to that is Marcus Aurelius. If you're a young man and you're seeking guidance, read the words of the wise men, the strong men of yesterday. That's all these fake alpha males and so-called gurus are doing today. They're just reciting the concepts, the precepts, the tenets of the warriors who have come before us. No man walking this earth is going to save you from what you have to go through to become a man. Don't fall for that bullshit. Instead of listening to dudes on the internet, finding your solace in them, go out in the real world. Join a fight gym. Get a hobby. Get around real men who do the things that you enjoy doing and learn from them. Find real men in the world that you live in, that you can admire, that you look up to, and learn from them. Having a bunch of money, railing a bunch of hoes, having a bunch of material things does not make a man. What makes a man is being a man, raising a family. More than anything else is being a leader, being strong, and being capable. You can figure that out all by yourself. The Matrix, all the guys who are telling you that they got the way, all of these guys are in the Matrix. All of them are going to lead you down the path that's going to benefit them. Trust yourself. Trust the process. Find real men in your life and watch them.